I wonder if I'm in the right place at the right time. And that's how my life seems to flow. And so recently, I was looking at some of my peace podcasts, and I came upon Mari's husband, David Frischman. And when I was listening to David Frischman, he said something that made me sit up straighter. Imagine, is what he said. Imagine a world where Rotary leads the way to permanent peace. Imagine a world where Rotary leads the way to permanent peace. I think we are all here because we believe that's possible. We believe that permanent peace can start with Rotary. After all, Paul Harris said, and I quote, he said, imagine, Paul Harris, but we ask, must the best genius of men be devoted to the science of war and none to the science of avoiding war? And he said that in 1940. And then in 1941, he wrote an article for the Rotarian magazine, his plan for peace. Here we are all these years since Paul Harris, and we're still bringing together peace. And as Mari said, I was the chair of the Rotary Action Group for Peace. And I thank all of you for being here and being members of the Rotary Action Group for Peace. And I am so proud that you are a Peace Builder Club district almost, because you have many Peace Builder clubs in your Rotary clubs. This is an exciting time for Rotary to show our colors, to show our passion, to show what we can do. I thought about David Frischman again, and I said, wait a minute, he had so much to say. Now, Mari is David Frischman's wife. After my husband passed, I wrote the book, Revolutionary Conversations, the tools you need for the success you want. The house was so quiet. I could start peacepodcast.org. And now I have over 175 world peacemakers on these podcasts. Why did I do that? Because I had the privilege of being married to Robert Mueller. And he took me and all together. We worked for 17 years around the world working for peace. He accepted many awards, but I remember one time when he was getting the award in Japan, he made a long speech in the world, and everybody was sitting in the sumo. You know the sumo wrestler? You may not have been to Japan when the sumo wrestlers were wrestling, but they give you a 4x4 foot square, and your whole family has to crouch together and get in this 4x4 foot square. And the wrestlers are on the stage in the center, and everybody's cheering. And Robert made his speech, and he ended his speech with do, 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 played on his harmonica, because he believed that joy is the way we're going to survive. And then I got up and I said 4 or 5 words. I said, thank you for being here, and my heart is full. And they gave me a standing ovation. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to, because it's my heart that I want to speak with. Those of you who got on early today, I said, today is a very special day, May 1. This is International Global Love Day. And I got on a very special Zoom this morning with Tammy Briggs, and she started to talk about music and the heart, and how music is the way we can bring our heart into harmony with the world. And I know we all care. We all care about the way our world is going. And we know about the issues that we are about to face. But yet we go to Rotary. Why? Because we are a family. I have read research. People say, well, how do you stay so young? I said, well, I'm a Rotarian. I have a family. That Rotary family nurtures me, even if it's on E Club of World Peace with Ray as our president. And then I have a little nucleus of friends who support me and love me, and I love them because we're working on Ending War 101. Helen Peacock, right in front of you. Kathy, and her putting mutually assured survival.world together. When you have people who are shouting your values, you live longer, right, Claudine? I've been to Claudine's meetings when she was doing her E-Club. And everybody was in harmony at that hour that we spent together. I'm going to go back a little bit in history. there are some people I want to thank. I want to thank Brian Farr. Brian Farr, no, Brian Farr is the man who did the primer for Rotary, and that's on our Rotary E-Club, Rotary Action Group for Peace. I want to thank Michael Caruso, also a member of Ending War 101. Mike Caruso started the first Peace Builder Club. He felt that if we really devoted ourselves to peace in our clubs, that we would be able to bring peace to the world. Why not? Look at all the millions of Rotarians around the world. Look at what we meet every week, and that's helping you be healthy. But in addition to being healthy, you have to know a way to share what you believe in. Let's go back to what David Frischman said in his peacepodcast.org. Imagine a world where Rotary leads the way to permanent peace. I'm going to quote Martin Luther King. Helen put together a course called Ending War 101, Making Peace Possible. See that little QR code behind Helen Peacock? Raise your hand, Helen, so in case they can't tell who you are, take a picture of that and join Ending War 101. I could cry when I say this one, because Martin Luther King is on this this course that Helen put together. And Martin Luther King said, I cannot be silent when there is a war going on. Now, I know you don't want to be silent with these wars and all the troubles that we're having on the planet, but you may not be prepared to say what you need to say. This is when you have to have that target speech, your vision that you say, like going in an elevator and say, I'm a Rotarian and I'm working on peace. That's how you begin. I'm a Rotarian and I'm working on peace. Now, how can you might have somebody in the elevator with you, or you might have somebody at the grocery store. You say, I'm working on peace. Why do I wear this little peace badge? Because I want people to say, why do you wear that? I want peace too. But you just can't come in and say war is awful, because it makes people sad. So you have to begin with where they are. And so I'm going to teach you, not teach you, I'm just going to share how I have gotten into having a transformational way of talking, a way to get people together. I didn't get this all by myself. After I ran for political office in Santa Barbara, because I wanted women to get out there. Every time they put a woman on a board of directors, peace happens. The women bring their hearts together. I'll remember going to India with my husband. Imagine this, I'm in India, and we're met at the airport with guns because they were afraid the men were going to shoot each other, even when we came in for Robert to get his prize in India. Well, they did shoot each other. The history of that town where we were in showed that the women were the survivors because the men were shooting each other over land, if you can imagine. And the women were the survivors. But I have never seen a more peaceful community. The women were the police chiefs. Now, I'm not a pro-woman doing this, but this is what happened in this little town. Police chief, mayor, marketplace, everything was run by women. And it was like, what did they have in common? I kept asking, what do they have in common? They want to have their children survive, period. They wanted to have a community that used conversations to bring decision making. They didn't want people just to be your way, not my way. They had conversations. Let me share a little bit about what happened when I stepped away from that. And I looked around and I said, what if we all had conversations? And that led to my book, Revolutionary Conversations, allowing us to begin to have peace through our conversations. Why did I write that book? Because I sat in negotiations with my husband at the UN, and I saw, as peaceful as they wanted to be, they just couldn't come alongside each other. Now, Sandy Hinden's on this call today, and he's working with Ernie Thiessen, and Ernie is working on Smart Settle, using AI to have conversations in war zones, to bring people into finding out what they have in common. But I started before Ernie Thiessen. I started after I ran for political office. I went to New York because I heard that Edward Bernays, the founder of public relations, was going to do his last seminar. He was 94 years old. I took my American Express card, put everything on there, flew to New York with my partner, my friend, who was my campaign manager, and we learned from Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays. Now, you guys are probably too young to remember this, but when I was a little girl, I was carving ivory soap. Why was I carving ivory soap? Edward Bernays got ivory soap to be part of, if you see sculptures, what happens in a sculpture? It's somebody's imagination. He had children. I was carving ivory soap and my mother was washing clothes from the chips that I was throwing around the house. And so, and then that's not the only one. The fruit company in South America said, oh, Edward, the United Fruit Company, oh, Edward Bernays, we're not selling enough bananas. And he said, well, I know you have millions of bananas, but why aren't you selling enough bananas? And he said, it's because nobody knows what's inside a banana. And so Edward Bernays orchestrates getting the opinions of the public to believe that there is something they can do. And at this point in our life, Rotary has to use this technique. Edward Bernays said, always use the engineering of consent. The engineering of consent. As a Rotarian, you can use this engineering of consent, and there's 5 or 6 little things you do. Awareness, bring people into it, your attention, like I'm working for peace, there you go. Give them a little bit of information, persuasion to do something. And when you get your group, or let's suppose you want to become an international city of peace, and your Rotary Club doesn't exactly understand what that is. Well, then you say, we would like to become an international city of peace. Here's the information on how we do that. And then you persuade them to do it. And when we do become an international city of peace, like the city of Santa Barbara, we're number 323, you reassure them that they're doing the right thing. That's really important. When you get somebody to do something, be sure you thank them and reassure them they're doing the right thing, and then evaluation and start over. So it's awareness, information, persuasion, reassurance, and evaluation. Doesn't that sound simple? That's the persuasion and the engineering of consent. When we are trying to get people to understand how important Rotary is and how important you are in Rotary, this is your time to practice awareness, information, persuasion, reassurance, and evaluation. Think of that. Think about what you can do when you are an active person. And as I go back to Martin Luther King, and he said, I cannot be silent when there is a war going on. And I'll never forget all of the people I have seen on Oprah Winfrey, and they would say, your voice matters. Your voice matters. Well, what do you do with your voice? We know what you can do because we have heard Sam Daly Harris. He said, you can become a leader. You can become a leader, a community leader, beyond signing a petition. And how do you do that? With transformational advocacy. Learning to be a spokesperson. His book, Reclaiming Democracy, Chapter 21, Ending War 101, we studied that book. You can be a transformational advocate by being that person. Now, let's go back to David Frischman. What did David Frischman have in common with all of us? He was a Rotarian. How did he become a Rotarian? He met Al Jubitz. I don't know if you know Al Jubitz, but he is like what would you say? He has a contagious disease. He loves Rotary. And anybody that hangs out with Al Jubitz becomes a Rotarian. He's contagious. He speaks peace. Why did he start the Rotary Action Group for Peace? He speaks peace. He wanted us Rotarians to have an umbrella of peace. And if you're going to Calgary, I want you to join our Peace Park. Jubitz funded it. We're going to be in the Peace Park. Helen, Kathy, we're going to be at the Peace Park. We're going to be there so that we can have this call to action. And we will be talking on the Saturday before the whole group starts on, I have to look this up. Sometimes I say it wrong. We're going to have Helen, what are we going to have? The Fellowship for Nonviolent Action. And that's going to be a workshop. Helen, you want to say 2 seconds about that?
Actually, Kathy is in charge of making this happen, and it's the Fellowship for Global nonviolence.
Thank you. Kathy, why don't you?
Fellowship for global nonviolence.
Well,
Kathy, listen to
I-
Kathy. You want to be there.
yeah, this is pretty exciting. And we have put together just off-site from the Calgary Stampede, a program, it's actually the Conference for Global Nonviolence. And we have a number of speakers coming in, but we're going to have food, we're going to have fun, we're going to get together in breakout rooms, we're going to be able to hopefully share with each other. That's one of the goals, and to learn. And we've got, let's see if I get this correct, Prime Minister Roach coming.
Senator
We
Douglas Roach.
have, I'm sorry, Douglas Roach?
Senator Douglas Roach.
Senator, okay, Senator, he's no longer, I elevated him to Prime Minister, I'm sorry.
Okay. You
And,
Americans.
we know, someday we're gonna become the 12th or the 13th province of Canada.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, and then we're gonna have a couple of other speakers as well. And Sam
Sam
Daly
Harris. Sam Daly
Sorry?
Harris.
Sam Daly Harris will be there. And we're gonna have a panel discussion. And Helen's gonna be on the panel, I'll be on the panel. We've got some Rotary Peace Fellows coming. And the idea is for us to get together and share our knowledge, and then to get into breakout sessions and leave there. And the outcome is that we network, we learn things, and we take that back to our club, so that we can become more active in trying to achieve peace. So it's pretty exciting. It's going to be the day before the conference starts, and we're going to advertise it and get more information out to everybody. So look for that. Look for the information that we're going to send. And Richard Denton has been spearheading so much on this, and he's going to put an ad out, and I believe it's in the RI magazine, that's more detail about how to register and be part of this conference.
And we will be able to go to mutuallyassuredsurvival.world and find out all about it also. So we will
Exactly
be looking forward to hearing from you. It's very interesting because this is the Saturday before the conference begins. And I was listening, I read one of Mary's emails to me, and she said, I'm going to spend all my time in the Peace Park. And I hope you too will spend your time in the Peace Park, because that's where we have community. And I have been watching so many of these towns on television who are talking about knowing their neighbors. Knowing their neighbors. Now, why is that important? Because I may have something my neighbor needs and I may not need it anymore. And we really have to get together like we do in Rotary and share our resources. We don't exactly know what the world's going to give us next year or the years following. But when we learn to be together and learn to communicate and share, then the world changes for us and we become more peaceful. Why did I start peacepodcast.org? Because I heard all these people some are no longer on the planet, but they're on the Peace Podcast, like the Nuremberg trial lawyer, Ben Ferenz. And he always would say, it takes courage not to be discouraged. He had 3,000 war criminals in front of him, 30 chairs, not enough space for all of them to be tried. And the night before he went to trial, somebody found the journal, the diary of these murderers. So it gives me chills when I remember talking to Ben Ferenz. And he said, I was 26 years old, and they asked me if I would be the lawyer for this trial. And I only had 30 chairs. So I began to look at who were the most violent of all criminals. And he would ask them, it says that I know that you have done such and such. And the person would reply, innocent. And he said, well, it says in your journal. And then he read what it said. And the 30 were found guilty of the atrocities that caused our world to back up and say, wait a minute, where was I? Why didn't I say something? Why didn't I do something? This is our time to become that transformational advocate. It takes courage to not be discouraged. It also takes preparation. Decide what you're going to say so that you can say it to anybody that comes up to you. Don't do what I did. I was standing in the Trader Joe's parking lot and I said to the woman getting in the car next to me, I was so excited. I just finished a meeting with Ending War 101. So I said, I'm working on ending war. She said, you are a nut. Nobody can end war. I'm in the parking lot. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. I should have said, I'm really working on peace. And she got so quiet because then she knew I was working on something she could handle. Because if you start saying it out, go off right on the hard part, then you really have to step back a minute. So find out what you're going to say and practice it. Say it to people. I'm a Rotarian and I believe that peace can happen. I believe that we are part of the puzzle that will bring peace to our world. And as you see behind me, it says peace is possible. And that's the model for the Rotary Action Group for Peace. And since you are Peace Builder Clubs, you already know that. You know that the Rotary Action Group for Peace is working for peace. And Helen and I are on the board of the Rotary Action Group for Peace, and we'd like to hear from you. I'm going to give you a few things that I think will help you with your Rotary clubs to bring peace into the club. And one of the things that when I was doing the in-person clubs, and I think we should do it on the Zoom calls too, is we ask somebody each week to tell me or tell the group what they've done for peace in the last week, a peace moment. Instead of they went on a vacation to Hawaii, that's nice, but that's not going to help our world heal. A peace moment when somebody is asked if they can give us a 5-minute overview of what they've done for peace in the last week, or how their little talk that they created, their vision for peace, and how many people they told about it and how it worked. What if you had a peace corner in your Rotary meeting where somebody had trouble? They don't want to talk about it, but they're not very happy, so they can sit in the peace corner and then you can have your Rotarians take care of them. But I also say, go to the website of Mutually Assured Survival. You may want to have more information about ending war and making peace possible. On that website, you will see many ideas that you can implement in your own peace builder clubs. We have peace builder clubs from the Rotary Action Group meetings periodically, and I hope you will join us. And we also have Pieces of Peace from the Rotary Action Group newsletter every month, Pieces of Peace, where you can share what you are doing for peace. So when you are a member of the Rotary Action Group for Peace, it gives you the opening to be in the Rotary Action Group for Peace, Pieces of Peace. So be sure you share with Rotary. And be sure you come, if you go to Calgary, that you join us for the Saturday before the conference begins. We will be at a special church, and we'll, as Kathy said, we will be sure to let you know about it. And last but not least, that Rotary magazine is pretty powerful. And I keep looking for big articles on peace. And I think maybe it's time that you consider yourself a writer and write something for the Rotary magazine, because they're always featuring different clubs. So let's feature some of the clubs who are doing things for peace. And last but not least, create your own mission. What is your personal mission? What would you like to see happen in the world? Because when you have that personal mission, like I do, that's how I live and breathe. I even swim. I have a swim class. And they say, well, how's peace today, Barbara? I mean, they know that I am working for peace. And these are people who are just out there, normal people. And so then last but not least, I want you to know that you are part of the world that David Frischman said, imagine a world where Rotary leads the way to permanent peace. Imagine a world. And why do I say that? My late husband, Robert Mueller, always said, it's what you think that creates the world that you want. And I remember Jack Canfield, who was the chicken soup for the soul man, who said, if you only knew how powerful your mind is, you'd never have a bad thought. Well, that's impossible. Even I, working for peace, have thoughts that aren't so cool sometimes. And that's when I remember what Jack Canfield said. That's the thoughts that bring the world to you, and the thoughts that make the world you want. And so when people say, how can you be so optimistic? How can you be so passionate? In fact, when I ran for political office, they were writing articles about me. Take your passion and make it happen. Well, how does that happen? Take your passion and make it happen. That's why I started Gone Global Public Relations. I wanted to work for better causes. In Santa Barbara, we had a gigantic water crisis. So I rented 2 camels and I had the city council members sitting on each camel. And I said, camels in Santa Barbara? No, not yet. But if we don't start saving water, and that got people to think, wait a minute, how can I save water? And that didn't work as much as when I got the picture of our water supply from Lake Cachuma, and there were big cracks in there instead of water. Then they began to get the message. Remember what I said? Awareness, information, persuasion to do something. You know what we did to get them to start saving water? They had to bring 2 water bills, one with their original water usage and the one that showed they were saving water. And then we gave them a bucket for their shower so that they could use that water that was coming in until the shower got warm and water their flowers. That's the reassurance that you're doing right. And then the evaluation, we had it daily, and we then had a newspaper, and we would put in the newspaper how we were doing for saving water. Now, those are simple models, but I think you will come up with new ideas that you can implement to help us become, as David said, the world where Rotary leads the way to permanent peace. And I'm at the end of this talk, but I want to tell you again, today is Global Love Day. And then we have the opportunity to let our hearts speak for us and to have our message very clear, so that when somebody says to you, what are you working on, Mary? And you and Mary will say, well, I'm working on peace, because I believe that peace is possible. And I'm in the Rotary Club and I'm in district whatever. And I hope you join us. So with that, I thank you. I hope that you are as motivated as I am to be a peace builder club, and maybe be the first peace builder district, and then we will be together. And with that, I'm open to questions if you have any, and whatever you'd like to ask. Thank you.
And Megan will be moderating the question and answer. So over to you, Megan.
Yes, same thing. I would just want to say, if anybody has a question, go ahead and feel free to raise your hand or come off mute, or you can also utilize the chat if you'd like, and I can read them out loud to Barbara.
You may not even have any questions. You may have some thoughts, like we do this in our club. So with that, I open the gate to your thoughts.
Well, everyone's thinking, I'm going to throw out a question. We as Rotarians often hear that peace is in Rotary's DNA. Now, you've talked about Paul Harris, but can you tell us a little bit more about that history and why peace is so much a part of Rotary?
Well, that's a very good question, because I go back to Al Jubitz and Dennis Wong. They started what I would call the movement to make peace have a reputation, to make peace very part of every Rotary Club. So Dennis went to Al and said, Al, maybe you should use some of that money you inherited to start the Rotary Action Group for Peace. And that's how we got that started. Now, it's a conscious decision to say that peace is part of Rotary. Now, you can have all these slogans out there, even Paul Harris saying they spend so much time on making war plans and we spend so little time on preventing war. But what do you do about it? You have conversations. And I would say that in Rotary, I have interviewed many Rotarians, even Al Jubitz is on my Peace Podcast. If you're not sure where you want to go in Rotary, go to peacepodcast.org and look at some of the Rotarians who I've had the honor of interviewing. Kathy has been on, Helen Peacock, Al Jubitz, David Frischman is number 88. I mean, his talk, he gave $250,000 because he wanted to make sure that we were able to bring Rotary into its true potential, to bring the Carter School and the Rotary clubs together. That was part of his dream. And when you listen to David, let me see, I wrote something that David said. Let me see if I can just put my finger on it. He said, imagine a world where Rotary leads the way to permanent peace. David says, as he answers the question, what's the purpose of your donation with your wife, Maury, and plan to make for RI? My hope is that this donation will strengthen the relationship between Rotary and the Carter School for Peace and conflict resolution, and lead the way to many global collaborations to become a global peace building force. And Rotary starts thinking of ourselves as a global peace building force. How about that, Mary? Right from your husband's mouth to your ears. And that's why I do Peace Podcast. When we harness the power of Rotary International, the 35,000 clubs, and over 1 million members around the world, we can achieve ambitious objectives, but we can't be silent and hope somebody else does it. We have to do it. Thank you for that question, Mary.
Thank you. And I'll call attention to the chat that Chuck has also just shared. If anybody would like the web link to the 1959 Rotary book, 7 Paths to Peace, he has that. They're going to be sending some copies also to Calgary, so you can catch it at the event as well. But it's looking for some editing and useful ideas. And so would love to get people to see it soon before it goes to the printer. And it also really hits on why Rotary is in, or why peace is in Rotary's DNA there. So, and Chuck also put in a request, Barbara, if maybe after this event you can send around that quote you just read for everybody.
Oh, from David Frischman?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll be glad to do that. He wrote that March 24th, 2023. And you know, sometimes, you know, they're not interviews, these are conversations. And I go back and I re-listen to them and I think the wisdom that pours out of these people when there's just a one-on-one. And I think that same thing happens with Rotary Club. If we have more conversations one-on-one and bring in that peace moment, it puts peace into the DNA of that club. Thank you.
Any next questions in the chat or off mute? I think when I had Barbara, when you and I spoke briefly, we were kind of talking about the concept of peace on an individual level as within your community and then on a global stage. And how does peace and like promoting peace change when you're working at like larger and larger levels? Is there anything different there?
You know, that's so interesting because one of the things that I have been doing, and because I'm a president of the United Nations Association, the local for the global, I didn't mention this, but this is something, thank you for tricking my mind to say International Cities of Peace. Think about that, the International Cities of Peace by Fred R. Ment. Our United Nations Association and our several Rotary clubs got together and we created number 323, 323rd International City of Peace in Santa Barbara. And when we did that, we got the marquee of our biggest movie theater to write, Santa Barbara is now an international city of peace. And you know, I don't know if you know about Larry Stober, but he's a very good friend of Sandy. And Sandy has put together RotaryPeacePolls.org. Is that correct, Sandy? Okay. RotaryPeacePolls.org. And if you don't have a peace poll in your community, you might want to do that. What you have to do is bring little ways that people can become aware that peace is possible and bring to the world and to your community ways that they can see peace happening. Thank you. Yeah, Rotary Peace. Thanks, Megan, for putting that in the chat, RotaryPeacePolls.org. And a peace poll's fine, but it doesn't do it unless you make a ceremony around it. Like we have peace polls here, and on the International Day of Peace, September 21, we do our Peace Prize in Santa Barbara. And our UNA and the Rotary Club select somebody who is doing a work for the global on the local level. And I see Claudine's hand up. Beautiful, Claudine.
Over to you, Claudine.
Yes, Barbara. Yes, and you know probably my involvement with the inter-country committees. The inter-country committees are based on friendship. I really believe when you are friend with people, you cannot go to war. War is just when you are enemies, but when you are friends, it's very, very difficult to fight. And when you are friends, you help each other. And I just want to tell you that we need to start with little things. And when someone told me, because I'm very involved in Ukraine, when someone tell me, oh, peace in Ukraine is not possible, there is nothing you can do now, I say, this is not true. There is always something I can do. And only little thing, you can educate the people. This is what we are trying to do. You can do humanitarian projects and everything will lead to peace. If you do nothing, peace is not possible. But if you do something, even a little something, even like you say, Barbara, put a peace pole, it's a beginning. You want to start somewhere. That's just what I wanted to tell you. And I really like your quote, it takes courage to not be discouraged. And that's so true, because a lot of people will try to discourage you. But
that's why Rotary works, Claudine, because we support each other. We give each other that unconditional love. And when you go to Rotary meetings, I think it's a health boost. I really do. I believe that healthy people are in Rotary, and you get healthier by having people checking in on you. I was thinking about my husband and I. We went to Sardinia, a little island right next, it was like a peninsula out there in Italy. And my husband woke up early, and so did I. And he went out to the beach, and he was in his brand new sports jacket and new clothes, and started to clean the beach. He got up about 5 o'clock. It was sunny, so he started cleaning the beach. And I said, Robert, you're wearing your best clothes and you're cleaning the beach. It needs to be done. It needs to be done. By 7 o'clock, he had a pile of toilet seats and old jackets and bottles, about 3 feet high, that he had picked up from the beach. And when we went to make his speech, he did his fabulous speech about, it is up to you to bring the peace our planet needs. It's up to you to honor nature, to secure a world that will be there for your children. And this man stood up and said, oh, Dr. Mueller, you're so important. You worked at the UN. What can I do? I live in Sardinia. And the man looked at my husband like, you quit telling us what to do when you're not doing anything. And then my husband said, what were you doing at 5 o'clock this morning? And he said, sleeping. And Robert said, not me. I was cleaning your beach because I knew it needed to be done. When I was married to Robert and we were in New York, he always had the cleanest mile on earth. Everywhere he walked, he had a plastic bag with him and picked up the dirt and the mess and the whatever. And the man said, really? You were out cleaning the beach? And I stood up and said, you better believe it. And I was mad at him because he was wearing his best clothes, cleaning the beach. But I really realized then, after 2 minutes of being angry, that he was doing something that needed to be done. What do you think that led to? A newspaper article. Assistant Secretary General Robert Mueller cleans the beach in Sardinia. It started a program of cleaning beaches all around Italy. And that was because of that man's question. Your questions are important because it makes people realize there's answers. Every question is a reason to believe something else. I believe in questions. Why do lawyers win? Because they ask the right questions. We have to ask the right questions, and we also have to have moments when our Rotary can say, what do you think we should do? We just had a meeting with the Rotary E-Club, and we put together a new plan, and we broke up into small groups. Zoom allows you to do so much. So we broke up into little smaller groups for Zoom, and we got to know each other and what we're doing and how we can share what we're doing with each other. And I think it's personal is better. And you said something, Claudine, that made me think of the Dalai Lama. And the Dalai Lama said very simply, if we had picnics with people who were going to have a fight, a war, and brought their grandchildren, and they all ate the same food, think about how they could never shoot each other because they got to know the family. So he thought the end of war could start with picnics. And there's so many ways that we can become friends. And I think Rotary has the magic of being together and the power of belonging. Thank you.
Thank you all. So there's one question in the chat here from Chuck I want to ask you, Barbara. That's, how would you say how important it is achieving the UN SDGs for achieving peace?
There's so many. Are you talking about the Sustainable Development Goals?
Yep.
We just were at the Santa Barbara has an Earth Day. We have 2 days of booths. What do you think? Oh, I wish I had it here. We put the Sustainable Development Goals, we put it, it's 5 by 8. We made this gigantic poster and we asked Santa Barbara, who was that? We made this poster and we asked Santa Barbans who came to our booth. Why did they come to our booth? Because we were giving out sunflower seeds. And we want Santa Barbara to bloom for peace. So everybody who came got a pocket full of sunflower seeds. And then we asked them, which sustainable development goal do you think we should implement in Santa Barbara? And then we asked them why and how we could do it. So instead of us saying these sustainable development goals have to be done by 2030, which was Antonio Guterres's goal, by 2030, we would have them implemented. We asked them how we could help get them implemented. So that's the answer to that one. Make sure you know what they are. Know what the sustainable development goals are so that you can also bring them to your Rotary Club. And the United Nations is celebrating its 80th anniversary this year. 80 years of being the global voice. But you don't just expect the poor Antonio Guterres to do it all. We have to do something too, as you know we can do. Okay, I see a hand over there.
Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm very inspired by everything we spoke today. And I just want to very quickly speak about one of our amazing peace programs, which is Rotary Youth Exchange. I'm from Turkey and I was an exchange student to the United States. And like the picnic example we gave, like when we come together at such a young and formative age with and live with a family, one really becomes like, when I go back to Turkey, if people said something about United States or Americans, I was like, no, that's not correct. I lived there. I was part of a family. It's not like what you say. It's a totally different level of world understanding. And it's becoming harder to find host families. So I just wanted to bring us attention. Let's support our youth exchange program. It's one of the best peace programs that we have.
You are so right. My husband and I, we had a person from, I can't remember where he was from, somewhere in the Netherlands. And he was so proud to be in the United States and be a Rotary exchange student. He had a banner that he was wearing and a sports coat with thousands. I bet he had about 75 different pins from all the Rotary clubs he had visited. Do you know, then they went on a tour to all the different Rotary clubs in the United States, about many different states. And those people fell in love with each other. I took him to I'm going to have tears in my eyes. I took him to the train station. And these people from around the world, these young students, were hugging and crying because they didn't want to leave each other. They fell in love on Global Love Day, just like Global Love Day. They fell in love with each other. And do you think they could ever shoot each other? No, they would always talk. So maybe we need more of the exchange students. And I was thinking about, I'm writing my autobiography and it's not easy. But you know what's happened to me? I'm falling back in love with my life. Sit down and write about some of the things that have made you who you are so that you can fall back in love with your life again. And I was telling my partner, Joyce, helping me, she said, that's a good title for your book, How to Fall Back in Love with Your Life. Because all of us, I look at you all, I see Daniel and I see Ken, and I think you're wisdom keepers. We're not the youngest people on the planet, but we're full of wisdom. Share your wisdom. Have a moment in Rotary where they say, what did you learn in your life, Daniel? How did your life change you? How did you become a peacemaker? Let people share their stories. That's how we get to know each other, right, Mary? And Mary, I see your hand up, dear.
Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to add, related to the question about the SDGs, that the Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution, which is part of the Rotary Carter collaboration, has been designated by the UN as the education dissemination focus for SDG 16, which is peace and good governance. So they're a major resource for dealing with the question that you raised, Chuck.
So how could we find out more about that? Would we go to the Carter School website?
Yes, and I think if you like, I can look into it in more depth than what's on the Carter School website. Absolutely, because it's really
That's my favorite SDG. Did you know that? That's the one that I quote all the time.
yes, of course.
Thank you, Mary. Daniel, I see your hand, but Kathy, go first, Kathy, and then we'll go to you, Daniel. Kathy?
Thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that Larry Strober is also working on peace trails. And what it's doing for us is it's bringing a group of Rotary clubs together. And the one peace trail he's working on is from Portland to Ashland, Oregon. And so it's going from north to south. And so I would get in touch with Larry if you're interested in learning more about peace trails in your community. It's exciting. And then
trail in Calgary, right, Kathy?
Yes, right. We're going to talk about that in Calgary. And I also wanted to mention, all of us have relatives. I live in Oregon, but I came from Massachusetts. So I looked up when I was talking to my cousin, how many peace poles are there in Massachusetts? And there are none in the area where he lives. So now I'm working with trying to figure out who to talk to in the Rotary Club where in his community to put up peace poles. So all of us, I think, have family at different places, whether it's the US or not. And we can work with Rotary clubs in areas where our families are and start talking about peace poles.
Thank you, Kathy.
I just wanted to share that, but I also wanted to share something else about, I'm not a strong activist. I don't go out in the street and I'm a scientist. That's what I do. And I'm a numbers person. So one of my favorite numbers, or not favorite numbers, however you want to look at, is what does the US spend on the Department of Defense? And right now it's at $895 billion. And you divide that by 330 million people, and guess what number you come up with? Each of us in the United States is spending $2,712 on the Department of Defense. And that's a whole lot of money to most families. And you multiply that times 4, because an average family is, 4 people. That's a whole lot for that family to pay. And I just wanted to kind of bring that out. And what I do is I write to my congressman and I start getting them aware of, let's get it down to an individual level. How many Americans can really afford that? And what does that take away from? So at any rate, there's something for everybody, regardless of whether you're out there on the street or whether you're more comfortable crunching numbers or whatever it is. I think there's something for everybody.
Kathy, I want to thank you for bringing that up, because it's money that could be used in different ways. And I lived in Costa Rica with my husband because he started the University for Peace. And recently I was interviewed and they asked, what is it like to live in a demilitarized country? What does it feel like? And I said, it feels like I'm not going to be spending my tax dollars on war industry. I live in a mountainous area. We bought a lot of acreage near the University for Peace. And I can keep that land for the future, for my great-grandchildren. It's got rocks and hills and valleys and animals and snakes. And it's over 200 acres. And what do I pay in taxes a year? $3,000. And because I'm not supporting of the war machine, I can afford to pay $3,000 a year to save that property so that we will have that for future generations. And when you go to Costa Rica, the other thing that happens, you run into children who are happy, children who are smiling, children who are running around, not in preschool, not always in a container of a home. They are running around in nature. Why is it the longest living country for people? Because it has families that are supporting older people living together, and all of these things. May I just ask Daniel what he was going to say? Daniel, I think I haven't had you say anything today, and I'd like to hear from you.
Well, let me just, can you hear me okay? First
Perfect.
of all, Kathy, I liked what I heard from you. Not everyone is capable of getting out in the street, but what you're speaking of from the heart is equally as important as someone voicing their opinion out in the street and raising a sign. When I met a man named Fred Liebel, who founded the New York City Marathon, which handles over 130 nations come on that first Sunday in November every year, I decided that man was giving something back to the world because everyone that came from those countries found out what America was truly like. And there at the UN on First Avenue at 42nd, we would have our 5K the day before. And that would be a run for peace. And that's back in the early 90s. Fred was so great that I put a statue in Central Park that stands behind the Metropolitan. I designed it, I had it paid for, and I deeded it to the New York Central Park. I was just one person. But as one person, it took many, like my late wife, who was very active politically in her time, and we were partners globally working together for 33 years. But what I want to say, other than that, just to give you a little bit of background on me, my older brother, I was my mentor. He did, I would say, far greater things. And Barbara, I'm writing my book right now, my second book, and it's not easy because I'm reliving each of those moments from the time I was in third grade to the passing of my wife, to working for the late Robert F. Kennedy in my first campaign in 1968. Reliving those moments is difficult, but those moments have to be relived and be told. The story must be told. It's the only way others can learn and grow because they can say, me too. My title of my book is The Nobody That Knew Everybody.
Good title.
And I say that because often I would ask myself at the end of the day, what have I done? I didn't win a Tony Award on Broadway or an Emmy or an Oscar. I wasn't elected to a powerful political position like many of my friends and my friends that were great authors. And so I called myself the nobody that knew everybody. But everybody is important in life. Kathy, I just want to point out to you how much I enjoyed hearing what you said. And Barbara, this is my first time to come across you. Love to hear more about your late husband and his accomplishments. And so I will look into that. I want you to know that. And to everyone else on here, thank you for allowing me to be part of this. I joined Rotary in '86 when I created a club in La Jolla, California, because it needed to be done. And then I was a member of the Beverly Hills Club, which you may know, Barbara, is a fairly powerful club. Meeting at that great exotic Beverly Hills Hotel every Monday at noon. But now I belong to the DC Rotary Club. That was the first thing I did last May when I came here from DC after the passing of my wife. So hopefully I can add something to.
I'd like to have a conversation with you since you're also working on your book, and we can probably share stories and figure out ways to make it less painful. Because there are some things like when I was teaching third grade, John F. Kennedy was shot. And I said, why am I here? And I had these third graders write who they were in the third grade and what they were going to do with their lives. And we all heard John Kennedy say, at my graduation from college, he was our speaker, and he said, we will get a man on the moon. And everybody said, impossible. And that's what we're saying about peace. It's impossible. But John F. Kennedy spoke that we would do this, and we did it. And this is the way I feel with Rotary, Daniel. that wrote
May
about,
I ask your college, Barbara?
I went to San Diego.
Pardon?
I went to
San
San,
State.
I was in
So
San
did I. My brother was at that same, when
That's
John F.
shit.
Kennedy spoke there at Aztec Stadium or
I think
Aztec.
I heard something about you, Daniel.
Because-
We have to have a conversation. Give me your phone number in the chat or just tell me your phone number. We have to
Yeah.
have a conversation. Because when those 5 helicopters flew over so that they would never know who was in what helicopter so that he was safe. And then he was killed the next year. My heart just split in two. It was like, what is going on? And from that day forward, I said, what if, as you said, when you go to bed at night, what have I done today, Daniel? This is it. I say the same thing. Have I done anything that's going to make this world a better place? And there you go. That's why I do these peace podcasts. And I want you on, Daniel. Keep talking. Your turn, Daniel.
I let that person that needed to cross in front of my car, I allowed that person to pass and cross in front of my car. That is an act of peace. That person smiles and goes home and says, you know, there was really somebody nice. And then that person will allow somebody else. It's that simple. It really is. Pierre Salinger was one of my great friends, by the way, became. So I'm very close to all the Kennedys. And I'm not trying to name drop. I just happen to know all these people. That's why the nobody who knew everybody.
That's the same reason I do peace podcasts. I had the good fortune of knowing the Ted Turners. I had the good fortune of being with Carl Sagan. But did the world get to meet them? So I said, well, why don't I introduce them to the world? The Ben Ferenzes, the Elizabeth Saturases, the great authors of peace books, the International Cities of Peace, Fred Arment, they're all on Peace Podcast. And if you have a moment and you're not feeling like doing anything, go to peacepodcast.org. My phone number's there, and I want to put you on. Daniel, you're going to be a member of this group too.
And I will just say one last thing. And if you need my phone number, however, I'm to communicate it with you. I'm happy to give it to you at any time. I was the only male member of Mothers Embracing Nuclear Disarmament in 1987 when Linda Smith, the daughter of Joan Kroc, who was the widow of Ray Kroc, who bought the McDonald's from two brothers in San Bernardino, California, and took it to the rest of the world. I said, Linda, which by the way was my late wife's name, but I said, Linda, I can't be on your board. This is Mothers Embracing Nuclear Disarmament. He said, you are every bit of that, and you will be on the board, and you'll be our treasurer. And so I did that in 1987. And
Were
the
you
car.
a marathoner? Were you a marathoner too?
I've been a marathoner. I've run a lot of Boston's, New York's, past president, New York City Marathon Tribute Committee. And then Forever at the Finish Line was my book that's out. Republished it this past November, to put a whole new chapter in there to honor my late wife.
Tell me again, Daniel, what your name of your book is.
Forever at the Finish Line. And it'll come right up if you do it. Bill Clinton did my forward for me.
Okay, we're running short of time. I hate to jump in, but I think we have time for perhaps one more question. We want to allow some time for the co-chair to provide some concluding remarks. So I think Sanford had his hand up.
Yeah, it was regarding, Barbara was talking about taxes. You know, I read a piece recently that we're so used to hating taxes, and the politicians get us to hate taxes, and we always want to lower our taxes. But in Europe, the taxes are much higher, but they're getting so much more for their money. That's the difference. So like in the United States, we're not getting very much because it's all going to the military. But in Europe, they're getting college education, they're getting health care, they're getting daycare for the children. So they get so much more for their taxes. So we have to get away from the idea of hating taxes to well-spent taxes and fair share taxes. That's what I wanted to say.
And yes, that's good, Sandy. Thank you. Okay, Megan, who's leading this part?
Now, yeah, thank you all so much. We're going to turn it over to Kenny Barnes, our district committee piece co-chair. So I'll turn it over to you, Kenny.
Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Barbara, for such a great, outstanding message. I'd like to say a couple things before I say my final remarks. I have to say something about David Fishman, Barbara. I'm a member of the Washington, D.C. Rotary Club. Proud to have my member, Daniel, on this meeting. I knew David Fishman. He was a member of my Rotary Club. And for those who don't know, I'm blind, I'm visually impaired. So when I came to the Rotary Club meeting one time, I knew David. You know, David and I sat at the same table. When I was ready to leave, David said, Kenny, do you need some help leaving? I said, yes. Thank you, David. The very next week, I found out that David died. David was at a Rotary Club meeting the week before he died. What an outstanding man, Mary. And proud to have known him for the brief time I known him. The other thing, Barbara, you mentioned about both we, our Peace Committee and the Rotary Club of Washington, D.C., along with Dr. Samuel Hancock, were collaborated and formed with India. And we just did a peace march in India following the path of Mahatma Gandhi. And we collaborate. I want to know our peace committee collaborated with that. So I just want to share that with everybody as well. And we sent a letter of support for those who don't know. I just want to say that. Now I just want to say a couple of remarks. First of all, my name is Kenny Barnes. I'm a senior. As you've heard, my son was murdered. But I think I got to clear up a little bit about my education because I got confused. It wasn't my son that went to college. It was me. I didn't go to college until I was around 50 years old. And I got my bachelor's and my master's degree from the University of the District of Columbia. And then I was proudly, out of 8,000 applicants nationwide, I was proudly accepted as one of only 8 applicants to apply to Loyola College in Baltimore. A very fine and excellent school. And then beginning my 3rd year, my son was murdered before I could finish. And that's when I dropped out. So I need to clear that up. I need to let everyone know that I've been over 20 years in the Rotary Club of Washington, D.C. My category is reduction of gun violence. And I need to let everyone know for the first 15 years, I would say, that I was in the Rotary Club, we could not talk about gun violence because it seemed to be too political. Well, that was my issue. I don't believe that registered gun owners are the ones that kill people. Their children may, but I don't think they are. But anyway. And so it's only been in the past, I'd say 4 or 5 years, that my Rotary Club in Washington, D.C., we sponsored a committee we call the D.C. Initiative Committee. And it was to look at violence and gun violence, not worldwide, but right in our own community. I don't know if any other club has done that. And we started that. And then I got elected to chair of the Peace Committee for the district. Well, excuse me, Barbara, you mentioned about a mission. Well, one of my missions was to say to Rotary Club, not only do we have violence all over the world, we have violence right now in backyards. And we cannot keep holding our heads in the sand as Rotary Club members and not recognize and deal with this issue as well. So I'm proud to say that because of the work of Mary and our Peace Committee, that for the first time ever, as far as I know, urban violence is on the initiative of the Rotary Club from our governor, our current governor. It's on his agenda. It's going to be on the national agenda. Thanks to Mary. And also, our Rotary Club governor came out and said this past Sunday that what we're going to do with our district is we're now going to deal with violence and try to interrupt violence and try to go around the pathways in the city of Washington, D.C. And the reason why I say this, because to prevent violence, to deal with violence, we have to prevent it. And I'm talking about urban violence. We have to prevent it, not wait until something happens and react. So I think one of my proudest achievements is being a part of the Rotary Club and the Rotary Club Peace Committee is that we are now addressing not just global violence, but we're now also looking at violence in our own backyard and trying to deal with it. And I'm very proud of that. Now, this Barbara is the first person in outstanding remarks that we in our Rotary Club Peace Committee, we decided that we want to have a series of peace talks. And we want to do it probably at least once every semester. And Barbara, I would like to thank you. You are our first in this series that we plan on doing. And I gotta say to Megan, who is just doing such an excellent job. When I say we, I and the Rotary Club of Washington, D.C. are sponsoring Megan. And I'm so proud of that. And so I wish to thank everybody for attending. I wish to thank everybody for being involved. And that should be our mission. Global peace and community peace. And combine them together. So on behalf of our district governor, Naomi, our chair, Emmy, and also our secretary, Murray. And Murray, I got to say to you that I am so proud that we're working with you and you agreed to work with us and be our secretary. Our chair is doing a magnificent job. But I just want to say thank you to Mary as well. She is justice. She is justice. She reminds me so much of us. She just stays on everything. I want to thank Mary as well. And with that, I'll turn remarks, Mary, unless you have some updates that you need to present.
I would just like to add my thanks to everyone who spoke and to Megan, who is clearly going to be a great leader now and in the future. Barbara, you did a magnificent job. Thank you all for your really insightful questions and comments. This has been such a rich event. We really want to get feedback from everyone as to how well this is working for you. Would you like to have this more frequently than every quarter? Do you have suggestions for speakers? We would very much appreciate you getting in touch with us and providing your input. And again, thank you very much on behalf of the committee, and many thanks to our wonderful district governor, Nomi, who's been such a major support for our peace initiatives. And did you want to say something more, Kenny?
Well, the only other thing I want to add is that another thing we're doing, we are very much involved with the Clarke Institute at George Mason University. I forgot to mention that. Not only are we involved from our district, from our peace committee at the district in Washington, D.C., I am working because I do a lot of work in Washington, D.C., dealing with violence and youth violence. I collaborate with a lot of people. And now Arthur Romero, professor at George Mason University, is working with us in DC as well to collaborate and talk about reducing violence. In addition, George Mason has a research project that they're doing right now about community violence, in which we are part of. And I forgot to mention that.
Thank you.
And
I want to thank you, Mari, for being so wonderful to David. And those of you who want to hear David's voice, you go to peacepodcast.org, and number 88 is David Frischman. And his conversation with me was just so powerful. Peacepodcast.org, number 88, and enjoy David, because the words that I read to you were right from what he said on the podcast. Thank you all for listening to me, and I'd love to hear from you. And I put my email in the chat so that you can send me notes and keep me posted on what you're doing with your clubs, because peace only happens with each of us doing our part and doing the best we can. Thank you.
Chair,
Thank you.
Madam Chair, did you wish to make any last remarks?
That's okay.
Okay.
I
Did
just
you want to
want
make
to
any
thank
last remarks?
everyone. Yes, to thank everyone for their presence. Thank you for your presence and participation. And remember, peace is possible. And we need to not just talk about peace, but we need to act and sustain our efforts for
Absolutely.
peace.
Madam
you.
Chair, you are just such an inspiration. From the minute you started speaking to now, it's just like you are inspiration. And I think that's what I see in each of you on Global Love Day. I just want to tell you I love all of you, because I say that to people. They say to you, how can you love me? And I think, where is that coming from? And I say, because I have love in my heart and I can feel it. And so I love you. And I say that to my gardener. My gardener says, well, I love you too. I said, thank you. Why not?
Thank you.
You're welcome. And keep it up, young lady.
Okay.
And that is a wonderful note to end on.
Yes.
Love, peace, and understanding.
And love. Thank you all.